Hey, what's going on, everybody? Episode 12 today of the GMI Rocket Show. I'm your host, Roman Zelichenko, immigration lawyer turned immigration tech founder and entrepreneur. And the GMI Rocket Show, we're talking to founders in the immigration space, building technology, building media, companies doing marketing, just all sorts of really cool things in the immigration space. Today, we have a really cool guest, Richard Alman, the founder of Recruiternetworks.com. They're essentially a media and technology company that helps employers, immigration lawyers post PERM ads. And we're going to learn a lot more about that and a lot about the automation around that and everything Richard is working on. Richard has a really interesting, eclectic, awesome background of not just immigration law, but everything from manufacturing to investing to media. And I'm just super pumped to talk to Richard. So Richard, thank you so much for joining today. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Happy to be with you.
Yeah, likewise. I was thinking earlier today, you and I have been connected for some time, but the first time I met you in person was at an AILA conference, I think last year, and you were one of the few people who I was able to give my labor list shirt to, and you sent me a picture, and that was really awesome, and I appreciate that. I hope that T-shirt is still comfortable somewhere.
Yes, absolutely. Gets a lot of wear.
Nice. Good. So you're down in Florida, right?
Correct. I'm in a little place called Bal Harbour Village.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like a little subsection of Miami Beach.
That's amazing. Is it still super hot right now? Are you doing okay with all the storms and such?
We've been really lucky. Listen, all I can say is I hope we don't get it, but I feel bad for whoever does.
Yeah.
Because in the type of climate we're in now with Corona, the economy, nobody needs more aggravation. People have it tough, and I'm hoping that's going to get easier for everybody.
Yeah, no, likewise. It's been crazy with all of the sort of big blazes out on the West Coast, all the hurricanes hitting the Southeast and the East Coast. But hopefully, glad to hear things are safe. So, one of the things that is exciting for me to talk to you about is that we're sort of in a very similar industry. We both are building technology and business around the DOL kind of labor related side within immigration. And so I'm really interested and I'll be really curious to hear about everything that you've been doing with recruiternetworks.com and sort of your, long list of entrepreneurial endeavors. I think one of the things that I love to do is learn a little bit about where the guests come from and sort of what inspired you to go into business, et cetera. I know you worked in Fortune 500 companies as well, as did I. And going from a large company to being your own boss is a really fundamental shift in the way you live your life, you view life, and how you spend your time. You went to undergraduate, you went to school at Duquesne University in Pennsylvania. I know you studied business. Can you talk a little bit about why did you decide to do business? I guess what sent you to Duquesne, and did you know you wanted to be quote unquote in business, or did it just sort of evolve that way?
I come from a kind of a multi-generational entrepreneurial family. My grandfather, my father, my whole family were pretty much entrepreneurial. They came here, number one, as immigrants. Running away from whatever countries they had to run away from because it was either political issues or economic issues, sometimes both. So immigration is the start of everybody's story, unless you're a Native American, of course. But I knew business was something that hit me because I knew there was a tremendous amount of individualism and entrepreneurialism. You could do what you want to do. You could gravitate to anything you like, whether it's buying and selling or manufacturing or marketing. It's just a huge thing. And business is really the kind of a cornerstone of how anything works, whether you're working for somebody else's business or you're working for your own. You need to know those things. And I was determined to get the best education I could. I was born in Miami. We lived in Pittsburgh for about 12 years of my life. My family was in the automotive industry. That's how I was involved. We had car dealerships, and I started, working in the car dealerships and with General Motors, particularly the Cadillac division of General Motors. Throughout high school and college, I was full-time working and full-time getting
Wow.
dual degrees. So I got dual degrees in business with concentrations in both finance and accounting. And I realized that, in today's world, even back then, the respect you're going to get from having the best degree you can accomplish for yourself. Affordability is always a question for a lot of people, and I understand that. Fortunately, I came from a family that was able to provide a good education, and when I lived in Pittsburgh, there were a tremendous amount of great universities there, and I chose Duquesne because they were very well known for their accounting, finance, and business. And that led me to learn a lot, so I can appreciate things. And, when you say working for large companies, large companies are great to work for because they have the resources and the money. Sometimes they have the foresight to be ahead of the curve with change in technology. And it's really important because the one thing I've learned is you need to know the macro and the micro of everything. And you also need to know when to be able to shift. Because if you're a micromanager, sometimes the world goes by you and you're too busy with details. If you're a macro manager, you don't pay attention to details, and sometimes things come up as problems.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to have a balance. But the other thing that I've learned is you get what you put into everything. You work hard to make a business pay off. Sometimes it doesn't pay off easily. You got to keep working hard. But people are the critical part. I've always believed the statement that said any company's most important assets go home every night.
Mm.
And to me, that was like, these are things that, you say, but I really took it to heart because I realized that employees, team members, whatever you want to call them, are truly the key to having a business that's not just able to succeed, but excel.
Yeah. Definitely, a company's best assets are its people. And it's funny, as you said that, I said the word "it's people," and then you said "go home at night," and I've thought, yeah, that's true. The people go home at night. So you graduated Duquesne. You great double majored. I mean, incredible, right? Double majoring and working full time in business and accounting. What was the first job that you got out of college? Were you staying on doing dealership work and such with?
Yes. Yeah. My family had car dealerships, and I was always on the track to work there. I worked there through high school. I kind of made like a deal with my high school principal that he would let me go to school till noon if I got good grades, and then I'd work till 7 or 8 o'clock at night.
Wow.
6-7 days a week. And that was a deal I made. And not only did I do that, and I achieved it, I actually graduated a year early because I was able to take more classes. So I was able to really do a lot. And I learned a lot. My parents didn't want me starting at the top of anything. So when I worked for the car dealership, I worked at the parts counter. I worked in a body shop doing body work. I worked in every part of the business. So I would understand it, but then appreciate what everybody in your business is doing to make your business successful.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really an important thing for me. And there were many times when people said, "Why are you doing that? And why do your parents force you to do that? Why don't you get like a management job?" And I said, "They're not really forcing me. They just suggested, and I thought it was a great thing, and I'm learning." I mean, imagine in any profession, if you start at the top, how is it that you can rationally advise clients or customers or even the people that are working for you or with you if you really don't know? I mean, it's kind of like in the military. Who wants a general tell them what to do that just kind of like got popped in as general, 2 days after he graduated from, military school?
Mm-hmm.
You need the experience, not just for yourself, but if you're in charge of leading those great assets, which are the people, you need to be prepared to do the right job.
Yeah.
And I was happy.
Absolutely. I mean, learning from the ground up is the best way to lead because you understand their problems, you understand their, their day-to-day work. And so it's wonderful. I think a lot of people, to your point, they can't wait to jump into the management side of things or just somewhere towards the top. And I think it's possible that what folks might find if they end up doing that is that they'll get frustrated with issues that come up from the people that are quote unquote below them, because they think that those are issues that are moot or not very important, but that's because they'd never been in that position. So I think it is, to your point, really important. You got to sell the widgets first before you own the widget company to understand, what makes the people who are doing the selling tick. So I love that. And like, what a great lesson that you got to learn right away. And also really impressed that you went to your principal and you wheeled and dealed with the principal. That's very cool to kind of be able to graduate and work and all that kind of stuff.
I've had a really fortunate life. I'm fortunate, and the universe has been very kind to me. And that's why, I always think twice, am I doing the right thing for people? Am I doing the best I can to be fair and social premise, business premise, or anything? Because to me, I grew up a lot, and I realized that, the world is a tough place. And I have been very fortunate that I have a position that is much more fortunate than many others. And I think the only way the society can continue in a harmonious way is by respecting and helping the people that didn't start or have those opportunities.
Definitely. And it's wonderful that you feel that way, and that you're looking to kind of figure out how to use what you have to really help folks. And I think that's going to be a nice segue into how we get into the immigration space. So after you graduate, you continue to run dealership or dealerships that, basically your family business. What was that step where you said, you know what, I'm going to go off and try to do my own thing? And I'd be curious first to know why you decided, and when you decided to do that. And then also, what was the first endeavor you got into? Because as we'll find out, as we talk, you do a lot of different things.
Well, okay, it's kind of easy. Growing up in Miami and then being transplanted to Pittsburgh, which was supposed to be a short-term thing. My dad had a partner which is, owns a lot of other dealerships at that time and still does. So when we acquired the major Cadillac dealership in Pittsburgh, it was not supposed to be a full-time move. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I look at the good. It happened. I was there. I learned. I made a lot of great friends. Pittsburgh is a wonderful city, great people. What I didn't relate to was that half the year it's gray, it's dark, and it's cold. And, when I graduated college, after a year or two, it really hit me that at some point, the idea is to find somebody who you love, get married, have kids, and so forth. And I said, I really don't want that to happen in Pittsburgh, because it's going to make it that much harder to get back to Miami, which was my goal. So I told my parents, and I said, I want to go back to Miami, make my own way. And quite honestly, when I came down here, I wasn't here more than, a few months, that I actually went and I was volunteering at a Jewish organization. They had some event. And that's where I met my future wife. And so everything came together. And at that point, what I was doing work-wise is I had started with Payne Weber, which is now UBS. And growing up, I had a lot of friends from all over South America. Miami was filled with people from, Argentina, Venezuela, Colombia, all these countries. And I had a very good relationship, but these people had some very important things in common. The U.S. was their safety net, and the money they had here was their safety net. And they had money in banks because they didn't trust anybody. But when I was working with Payne Weber and my background in tax and accounting, my specialty became NRA, which is non-resident alien, meaning foreigners who can invest in the United States. But if you understand the investment parameters of the IRS, you can work with your non-resident alien investors to invest in things that are completely non-taxable. And if they trust you and you do the right thing, you can put them in lots of investments that are going to be 2 or 3% that the banks were paying. So inadvertently, again, I was the accidental tourist. these people started because they knew me and they trusted me, kind of, funneling business my way. And as that was happening, they'd recommend more people in their country. And the next thing you know is, I'm working in the international division, flying around to the various countries and meeting with clients, both corporations and wealthy individuals, and kind of shooting to the top of Payne Weber International, bringing and building portfolio. And it was really a very interesting time. And I hopefully did a lot of good for people, because the unfortunate premise of a lot of the investment companies is, they're looking to make fees and commissions. And, these clients wanted safety. This was their emergency money. If they had to leave their country on a drop of a hat, whatever they had here was it. So it had to be safe. And, I was always butting up against the companies who said, you can make major percentages doing partnerships and all these different, real estate syndications and so forth. But that wasn't right. So I always learned, stick by your guns. You don't go where the biggest money is. You go where you're doing the right thing for your client. And that, to me, principles are something I learned early on, fortunately from my family. And I still think, it's a cornerstone of anything you're doing socially or business. Your reputation is everything. People say that, but it's really the truth. And I take it to heart. I try to do the right thing for people. And if you make a mistake, figure it out, fix it, and talk about it. And that happens too.
And so you kind of got into the immigration space initially, I suppose, by accident through this sort of foreign investment arm, I guess, right?
Well, it's actually more strange than that. How I got into Recruiternetworks.com is I had been introduced to the person who originally started the concept, had about 24 cities, and was needing to sell it after being successful with 24 cities. And what I looked at is I said, I believe, there are monster.coms and there are, LinkedIn's and all these giant URLs, but I is in their town, whether it's dating, you want to date somebody in your town, not across the universe. Whether it's a restaurant, again, you want what's in your town. So I believed in the premise of hyperlocal. But when I acquired this, it had been hard coded for these 25 cities. And I had to, I'm not a coder or a programmer, but I'm an architect. I figure things out. And I was able to hook up with some very, very good consultants who understand how to program. We looked at the software, we looked at everything, and I said, I need to make it national. And they told me I would have to rebuild about half of it, but I could do it. So then, this was about 10, 12 years ago when I acquired it from the original owner. I've spent the last 10, 12 years acquiring every city. So it started with MiamiRecruiter.com, NewYorkRecruiter.com, but I bought 1,000 additional cities, and they weren't just there waiting. I had to acquire, I had to negotiate. It's a whole business buying URLs, buying digital websites. So I spent the past 10 years acquiring that, no VC, no angel money, my own funds, and spending a huge amount designing software that would be able to manage over 1,000 different websites, because each of our portals is its own website. DetroitRecruiter.com, NewYorkRecruiter.com, they are their own websites.
Now, Richard, just to take a quick step back, can you give a little bit of a sort of a high-level overview as to what Recruiternetworks.com sort of does and how it works, and then then we can resume sort of how the growth of the company happened from the original acquisition to now?
Yes. Okay. So Recruiternetworks.com is a landing page which then shows you what cities we cover. So we cover 1,024 cities. They're each on their own website. So essentially what we've done is we've localized and made it easier for somebody to either hire somebody, or if you're a job seeker, find a job. So instead of dealing with a massive site like Monster or LinkedIn, if you're in Chicago, you go to chicagorecruiter.com, and we have the 40,000 jobs that are available in Chicago. How do we have them? Because we are partnered with everybody who's large in the job industry, and with our associations, we cover everything. So when you come to one of our sites, we have 74 classifications of jobs, and we have pretty much every job in each of those 1,024 cities. So you can basically have your own local watering hole. You don't have to deal with a mega site. So it's all free. Job seekers upload their resume. We have job alerts. You can use your cell phone, your computer. Overnight, we send out 20, 30, 40,000 job alerts to our clients saying, here's a job in your city that meets your criteria. If you've already uploaded your resume, just push a button and you apply in a moment from your phone. So we've automated all of that. Our difference is we're hyper local. We serve each city or town so people can deal with what they want to. They don't care about the rest of the world. That was the premise. Then I can explain how the immigration part came in whenever you're ready for that.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I want to say, thank you for that, the background. For folks who are listening, if you have questions, if you have comments, if you want to just shout out and say hi, please stop by and shout out. You leave your comments, leave your questions and such in the comments. We do have just one comment from Isabella Duenas Lozado. Hi, Roman. Hi, Isabella. Thanks for your comment. Yeah, so absolutely. I think, thank you for sharing that. And it's interesting because, and I'll be towards the end of our conversation, I'll definitely be interested to hear about your thoughts on hyper-local hiring, potentially in the world, in the COVID and the post-COVID world where a lot more people are working remotely. Obviously, not every job can't be done remotely. There will always be a need for local work, always, because we are physical beings, we occupy physical space, and we need things, services, right, products around us. So how did you, one question that I have for you is when you initially acquired this company, did you have a thought about where to expand it, from the 24 cities to more? And sort of, where did the immigration piece comes in? Because right now, a lot of the, you go to your website and the first thing that pops up is, some of the work you're doing it with Ayla, all of the partnerships you have with the immigration case management platforms. How did that happen?
Okay, so that's the accidental tourist. And I think it's such a fortuitous set of things that happened that it's really a happy story. But how I picked 1,000 cities beyond the original 24, 25 was very simple. I had a demographic study of the United States, and I went to the largest demographic cities. And that's where I said I need to be. Because in order for me to get big companies, Hilton Hotels, McDonald's, or whomever it is to utilize me, I need to have a national footprint. I can't go to Burger King and say, hey, can you use us for hiring in all of your stores? And I'm only in these 80 cities or 100 cities. I need to be everywhere. And I'm still growing. How immigration came is just a wild, wild story. I started seeing clients that were paid posting, and there were a lot of law firms. And I got a hold of one of the law firms. Actually, it's one of my key clients for many years is Seyfarth Shaw. They have a whole immigration division called BIG, Business Immigration Group. And I spoke with them, and I just, I said, hey, you're using us. Tell us what's going on. And they said, well, look, you are perfect for PERM ads. And I said, well, as opposed to temp ads? I didn't know what she meant. I had no idea. She says, you really don't know what we do in immigration. I said, I have no idea. Explain it to me. So she explained it to me, and I realized. And as I did this, I decided as I looked around that nobody else was truly understanding the issues, the rules, the regulations, and the needs of the immigration community. And the immigration community has some very, very specific needs that are being overlooked. And I decided that I was in a proper venue that I could I could orchestrate something which would make their life easier, happy, and more economically beneficial for both the law firms, their clients, and the ad agencies that we also deal with. And what that was is they, firstly, if you go back to original published papers, printed papers, the DOL regulations were very clear. If you had a job in Baltimore, you had to put an ad in the Baltimore Sun or whatever the newspaper was, San Francisco, the Chronicle, New York, the Times. These were very plain and easy regulations. When the digital world evolved and digital became an option, what happened was they had the monsters, jobs.com, all these other guys, and they become another option, 3 out of the 5 choices for doing your PERM advertising. And what happened was, newspapers were charging more and more outrageous numbers as they were drowning in debt and their economics weren't working. They went opposite of good business sense. They started charging more and chasing customers away and started charging less fee and gathering customers. But the digital started getting more and more expensive, and they would say, wow, yes, you're on monster.com, but look, we're going to give you all this distribution, all these different websites, and we're going to share your jobs to these hundreds of websites. Isn't that wonderful? However, that really is not what the DOL regulations required. So what my websites are is they're very laser focused. If you have a job in Chicago and you put it on our chicagorecruiter.com, we laser focus it there. And that's what the regulations require. So we don't share it all over. We don't have people indexing us because we block bots mostly. So people are not scraping our jobs and putting them, because quite honestly, the whole objective is to meet the regulations of the Department of Labor, which is what we intend to do. And more, as I would speak with the different attorneys in the law firms, I realized they were spending 2 to 3 hours doing manual labor. And I said, what kind of labor? And then they explained to me they'd have to go on and turn postings on, turn them off. They'd have to do things like getting printouts, so they would have for their file certified screenshots printed out to keep in the file. And what I did is I looked at all this, I spoke with the attorneys, and I worked to architect an automation so that all of those tasks that the attorneys or their paralegals or the ad agencies were doing, I've automated, and I don't charge any extra for it. So when you come onto our site, first of all, we don't have to worry about abbreviations. They can copy and paste whatever the lawyer has or whatever the business has for the ad copy. You don't have to worry about figuring out how to abbreviate. You can copy and paste it. And then we have automation. What days of the 30 days that you're buying do you need it visible? What do you need as far as screenshot requirements? If you need first and last, click here. If you want all days, click here. If you want us to send you pushed certified screenshots, let us know. Click here. We'll do it. Give us up to 5 different email addresses: client file, case manager, lawyer, whatever it is, then we will push you certified screenshots so you don't have to worry about going in and out of people's systems to do it. Or if somebody's on vacation or maternity, hey, was it done? So all of these things save about 2 to 3 hours of labor per file. Ultimately, we listen to our clients, and I know you and I have had a lot of conversations because you do the same thing. People don't listen, so they don't know what the problems are that people are experiencing, because if you don't hear them, you can't figure them out. So it's interesting because when I did all that and I really wanted more, I wanted to conquer more issues, I went to a few of the lawyers and I said, what are the biggest issues you're facing? And they said to us, audits. And I said, well, tell me the problems. And they said, Richard, you can't help us with audits. And I said, explain how it works. And I said, okay, Department of Labor can audit a file from last week, last year, or whenever they want. Okay. What happens at that point? Well, they need to go through the file to make sure that everything is done per regulations and nothing was missed. In this administration, obviously, there's a lot more audits happening. So everybody's really trying to mind their P's and Q's. So I said, how can I help? And they said, unless you want to come and work with us here in our office, there's not much you can do. I said, well, what are the problems? And this is where the meat is. So they said, well, you go and you start looking at the file to make sure you're ready for an audit. And 20, 30% of the time, something is missing. Somebody didn't print out a screenshot. You don't have a certified copy of the ad. Something like that is missing. And everybody argues. Ultimately, they blame the last person that left the firm, but we still have to figure it out and fix it. Because if anybody fails an audit, you know, it's a big problem for the client, for the law firm, for everybody. Nobody wants to fail an audit. So I said, I understand. I think I can help. So what we did is we spent a month and I built a virtual server. And this virtual server does one thing. It has every record of the past 20 years of every posting, of every PERM ad every client's ever done. And on our client dashboard, if you're missing something, somebody was on maternity, somebody forgot to check a box, whatever it is, and you need something in your file that came from our system, you go on your dashboard, you put in your reference number, the date, the client, whatever way you want to search, and we have every certified screenshot for you for the past 20 years. You can print it or email it on demand. So from our aspect, you will never be without documentation. And we have had many law firms that have called me and said, you have done something that even our partners were so amazed because nobody's gone so far to figure out our problems and actually help us resolve them. So I'm really happy because you know what? My thrill is when a client is doing something and I can make their life better or their client's life better, I'm a winner. And I'm the kind of guy, I'm a 24/7. People have my cell phone number, my email, my personal email. If they have an issue or a question or a problem, I don't go anywhere, even on a vacation, without my laptop, and I can hook into our system. And if there's an issue, we'll figure it out. And that's truly where we're different. And that's how when I went to the ALA in Orlando, and I went to that convention and I met people, and you know, I was prompted to go by my clients. We deal with all the different ad agencies. I can name them all, but everybody knows them very well. I don't want to pick anyone out because they're all great people with great firms. And, you know, these ad agencies, law firms, big or small, our ultimate goal is to give them a product which does the best job with the most economic, less labor, as your company knows, and best price. That ultimately, you know, I'm sure you're aware, as of most of the people participating, that Department of Labor had changed the regulations on H-2s last year, the end of the year, and they basically went all digital. So the advertising requirements went all digital. The winds of change are blowing, and from the rumors I hear, H1s are going to be taking the same path because less newspapers are being printed. In Pittsburgh, where I live, one of the 10th largest industrial cities in the U.S., there used to be 3 daily printed newspapers every day. Now there's none. There's no more daily printed newspaper in Pittsburgh. And that's an indication of what we all know. Newspapers have lost their ability to serve the public in an economic way that lets them survive. Digital's taking over. And what we hope to be is a good alternative for the immigration field to be able to accomplish what they need to by the Department of Labor requirements. And that's what we're trying to get our message out to people such as who are listening to this today.
Yeah, and we have a comment here from Carl Balsmeyer. Says, very true about missing printouts. Great to be able to get old files on demand. I love that. I love that story because it's one of those things where you didn't intend to get into business to work for with the immigration industry, but through client discovery, through if you never called the law firm, your law firm client, you would never have had the insight to realize that you're solving a problem that you weren't even aware existed. And I think that's a really great lesson, that if you're seeing something interesting or something that seems out of the ordinary, not necessarily in a bad way, but just unexpected, reach out to your clients, reach out to whoever it is and say, hey, tell me more, right? Because you might find that there are huge opportunities and a door that you never even considered opening that can lead you to, some sort of success. I wonder, so, your platform allows immigration lawyers to, among other parties, to post digital but local job ads that are not then essentially sent across the entire internet, but really do exist almost in a for local geography, even though they're virtual. How did you then integrate more deeply into the immigration space? So, okay, great. You have law firms using you. You have maybe employers using you. Let's just stick with the PERM example. They're using you for PERM. How did you then move forward and start talking to the case management software providers and all the other some of the other immigration tech companies in our space? And my understanding is you've integrated with at least some of them. Can you walk through that a little bit?
Sure. AILA was really a really wonderful place. The convention in Orlando where we spoke, I met with Umesh, INS Zoom, Alex, Blue Dot, the team at Microsoft, which Microsoft has their own MIMS, Microsoft Immigration Management. They came, we had a great discussion. They're bringing what was a Microsoft product for their 90 million employees worldwide. They built for them. They're bringing it now to the public. They're going to make it part of their Microsoft 365 offering. And we had conversations, and the conversation was very simple. Case management, great software. They're all great.
Sorry, the audio is a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. It's actually pouring rain in Miami, so it's a little. The rain seems to be affecting our internet. It's the two cans with the string between them here. So
do you have a cord by any chance or anything like that for the?
Is it not okay?
Sounds like you're in the other room.
Better. Still not good.
That's a little better. It's a little bit better. Yep.
Okay. Better. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Thank you.
So at the AILA convention, I met with Ramesh and INS Zoom, Alex at Blue Dot, the team from Microsoft, and the conversations went along the lines of, the case management, they're all great in their own way. They all solve problems in their own way. But they're all leaving their ultimate clients, the immigration firms, with a gap. And the gap is that after they utilize that case management software, that attorney, that immigration specialist, still has to go out and do their ads. And what I had is I said, look, we're all in this with the same objective, to satisfy the clients. How do we integrate with you? And when your client is doing all the necessary case management on your software, you'll then be able to say, you can now do your advertisements here. And in partnership with Recruiternetworks.com, you'll be able to do it built into your case management, and it'll be that much easier for that immigration firm to have everything in one silo organized. And that conversation took up some time, but it ended in action. And right now we're finalizing the details. We're probably about a month left until Blue Dot is going to be launched with our integration. But as I said, we have discussions with INS Zoom. We've talked to Bridge. We've talked to Law AI. We'd love to be able to integrate with everybody because, as I said, we're basically Swift. We are very quiet on what we do. Anything I talk about is usually out in the open anyway. If you look at our websites, any of our sites, you'll see 230 to 250 of our clients. And that's because they've already advertised with their names So I don't release anything that's not totally proper to disclose. But this case management guys, we're happy to deal with anybody. But the objective here ultimately is, how do we make it a better functionality for the ultimate client? How do we bring the cost down? And then COVID has changed so much. I've had law firms that, they call me from home. People are working from home 75% of the time. And I'm hearing things like, the partner said they have to let go of certain people across the board. And they're like, well, we need these people to do these different, requirements. And they're like, figure it out. And they said to me, basically the only thing they can do is plug in more of the automation that we're supplying in order to keep up with the legally required steps and having less bodies to do it. So, COVID has kind of pushed things much more for technology, not just in immigration, but it's presented the perfect storm of opportunity for people with an open mind that can learn how integration with technology can help them and their clients.
We have a question here on that note from
Hello?
we have a question here on that note from the H-1B guy, Richard, who asks, prediction time, what's one change to PERM labor that you foresee in 2021? Now, obviously, you're not an immigration attorney, unless you've also done that in the meantime. But not yet. But you sit very, very you're centered right in the PERM space. What have you been seeing, or anything you've been hearing for PERM labor certs in 2021?
Unfortunately, immigration has become a political football. And it's very sad because these are people's lives, not just individuals, but families. Very large amount of people are involved. There is a misconception that I didn't know all the facts until I did my research, but there are very few people that can claim that the PERM certification and H-1B employees coming over are hurting anybody in the U.S., because truly there's very, very tiny amount of overlap. And that's important to know. But it's become a political football because a lot of people don't do their own research. They listen to what somebody tells them, and it's not the facts. So I think the facts are going to come out more and more. I think that immigration, the kind of the cloud of which way is the wind going to blow politically, I think that will resolve itself, because the people that are coming in under the H-1B and all the different classifications are critical, because the U.S. has a history of being built and changed by smart immigrants, many of them who then built big companies here and employ lots of Americans and immigrants also. And I think those winds of change are going to blow in a very positive manner. In the meantime, I see other changes, because I do see that technology is going to play a much larger role, because of everything that this COVID has done to kind of speed up the process and the needs. But I also see that the newspapers that are failing, as we know, McClatchy went bankrupt. They were taken over by somebody. I personally don't see that they have a long lifespan the way they operate. So I think that as the H2s went to all digital for required advertising, I certainly believe that the near future H1s will likely end up in that same space, which is going to make it easier and more cost effective for the ultimate client, for the law firms, and for everybody else. And I think that's important, because now money is a very important factor in everybody's life and everybody's business. So I think it's going to be a positive change.
Yeah, from the labor condition application side, which is, I suppose, where my expertise is, I'm definitely seeing more and more adoption of electronic posting and management of LCAs for the H-1B side. So I'm sort of the early stages, and then when PERM posting comes into play, that's sort of where you come in. So that's why this is really fun for me to kind of, really learn and dive into where you support the process. I'm seeing so much more interest in automation. I was actually watching a legal tech startup pitch earlier today, and a lot of the attorneys and a lot of the folks there just continued to hit on the note that law firms are skeptical to use more technology. And I think as a lawyer myself, I can say that I know a lot of attorneys that, not that they don't believe in it, but they just want to be so much more sure of the efficacy of technology that they end up being late adopters, right? But of course, we know that technology needs people who will at some point have to take a little bit of a chance and say, look, we can't say 100%, unless there's a Supreme Court decision on this, we can't give you 100% guarantee as to how this technology will shape your practice. But if you believe in the value of using technology for whatever it is, PERM posting, LCA posting, case management, whatever it might be, some of the folks need to take a chance and just adopt new tech. If the tech doesn't work, you can go try something else. But the idea is that to the analogy you made, the winds of change are blowing in the direction of more technology adoption, of more flexibility with how law firms sort of, run their practice. And I think that's where folks like you and I and others can come in and really bring some support. We've got some love coming your way, Richard, from Barry Warden, saying that your company is the #1 go-to for all their digital advertising for the law firm clients. So thank you, Barry, for your comment there. So
Thank you, Barry.
Yeah, I want to ask you sort of one quick question here, because we did jump into the immigration side, but I'm curious. You also work in film. You've made video games, I believe. You've imported clothing and apparel. You've sort of dabbled in investment. Can you just shed a little bit of light on sort of where a lot of these endeavors sit in your life, and then maybe a little bit of how doing all these different things have shaped you as an entrepreneur?
Yes. Well, let me hit one thing as far as what you said about technology and early adopters. I believe you're correct. And I believe as an attorney has to be extremely prudent on what he does to change his business. And in order to support the attorneys who think that very conservative way is the right way, I just want to say we've tested our product to make sure it works well. We tested it for 20 years. So whoever gets it now, I can tell you, in 20 years, we have never, ever had a DOL issue, which is the only issue that somebody really needs to fear in this circumstance. In 20 years, have not had one. So I wanted to let everybody know that we take it just as seriously as you do, because everybody relies on every link in the chain, and we're one of the links that has been tried and tested. Kind of now to change to what you were asking, I'm in a lot of things. I'm excited about everything. My 3 girls are now older. One's an attorney in New York, not immigration. She got married just before COVID, February 22nd. So she's with her husband in New York, and she's working remotely. So I understand the life of an attorney, because she's working 20 hours a day and loves it. My other daughter had graduated from Emory Goizueta Business School and had been working in New York at Bloomingdale's corporate. They laid off 7,000 people. She had to come home. My youngest daughter is graduating University of Miami Business School with dual concentrations on business and technology. So she's the bridge between management and their techies. So I find myself with time. Our family business that had been 40 years, we exited before COVID. It was apparel. We designed, manufactured, and supplied all the major department stores from Bloomingdale's and Macy's and so forth in the U.S. since 1980. And that took up quite a bit of my time. So now my time is spent doing a lot of my projects. I have a lot of them. I've written dozens of TV shows, movies, and books, drama, comedy, animation, that I've done my own animation, And we're now working with a number of studios and networks because, as everyone can imagine, the demand for content is very, very heavy with all the streaming services. So it looks like I have a good chance of having some of my projects put in action. And they're all really very interesting, all kinds of different things, and they're all unique. So I write and I create, and I do that. But I'm still not done with Recruiter Networks. As I said, I built this without any outside money, no VC, no PE, but I built this with a whole other global aspect in mind. I knew 12 years ago where newspapers were heading. So I built this software not to handle the 1,000 cities, but to handle 20,000 cities. And I built it to do something that I'm now ready to do, but I'm actually looking for venture capital, private equity. I'm going to build with this software, I'm going to rename it. So I'll have a new network, which will be called The Buzz. So I'll have NewYorkBuzz.com, MiamiBuzz.com, and we're going to have 10,000 daily newspapers in each city in the U.S. and 10,000 around the world, where I have a understanding with the Associated Press for news, and you'll be able to get everything for free as a reader, but you'll be able to click here for cars, click here for real estate. In other words, we know everybody's got 30 different apps and websites for dating, for gambling, for restaurants, for home repair. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the old-fashioned newspaper and the digital world, and I'm cross-pollinating the best aspects of all of them. So you have in New York Buzz everything you need. You have your news, you have your community information, you have your restaurants, your movies when they open. In other words, my tagline is your source for everything local, everything. And we then are going to look to make the money from the advertising, but we do not want to ever charge people because people need an independent source of news. We all know the big names out there of news issues that people are getting slanted news, untrue news. We don't really know the truth on what's what. My objective is that I want to have with the Associated Press and our own news organization that's going to be homegrown, and I've already got a schematic on how that's going to work. Real news in every city, in those 10,000 cities in the United States and around the world, where people are going to be able to get unbiased news, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and they'll decide what they want to think on their own. We're not going to lead anybody, but we're going to have a place where you can do everything.
So where will immigration sit with the new organization?
Well, the new organization will also have careers. And talking to my clients, they still want to have the professional portal that's the Recruiter Networks. A lot of the big companies we deal with like that because it's a very independent, very unique portal. There are other clients, for instance, the Burger Kings, the Pizza Huts, the Ubers, they're all fighting to hire people. They're all competing with each other for the same labor force. So what we're going to do is in each city, we're going to have this, but we're going to have this where it's extremely reasonable for a Pizza Hut or a McDonald's or a Kroger grocery to be able to hire, because we're going to have monthly unlimited for companies like that. So we can bring down our cost of hiring. Maybe it'll be $100 a month unlimited posting for those types of companies. Because what we want to do is we want to make everything more economically feasible and more focused to the cities, because people are having a hard time. I've recently been on a radio show, and on there was an ex-NFL player who was playing for 3 or 4 teams. And when we talked about it, the discussion was, hey, here are the NFL, NBA, all these great players. They weren't playing for 6-7 months, and they're all making tens of millions of dollars. And, regardless of the sport, they have this in common. But they also have one other thing in common, which is their fans. And those fans have a similar issue. They don't have jobs, or somebody in their family doesn't have a job. So I said, what could we do to help your fans? And what we came up with is that Miami Dolphins, Miami Heat, the Broncos, whoever it is, can ally with Recruiter Networks and say to their fans, we have a heart. We know you're having problems finding good jobs. So we've aligned with MiamiRecruiter.com or DetroitRecruiter.com, whichever city they're in, because we want to give you a free resource in your city to help resolve these issues. So we're now doing outreach to all the sports organizations, and if anybody's listening, I welcome anything, because we want to be a resource to help people. Because the ultimate thing is, regardless of where you are, your religion, your color, your anything, everybody needs to have a source of income, a decent place to live, and those basics. And the one thing I can do is make sure we're doing everything. We have 9 million jobs today across all of our cities. We have basically, I would believe, almost every job in 74 categories, and we want to make it easier for people to find that job or a better job.
We got a shout out here from Shiv, says, "Hi, Richard."
Hi, Shiv.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think it's cool to see kind of what a company that fell into immigration in a sense and has really grown with immigration, how you are going to take that as a jumping off point to build something potentially even bigger, much more global, or at least even if it's within the US, much more, covering many more cities. So I want to, wrap up here with a question for you. I think it's fascinating to hear. We've heard a little bit about your thoughts on the future of both immigration on the PERM side, and then of course your thoughts on the future of recruiter networks. One of the things that you mentioned earlier is the hyper local, and I'm curious to know, where do you think the idea of remote work is going to take the flip side, which is the necessity for having really local work? I mean, people are fleeing cities, buying real estate or moving out of the country, as far as the US is concerned, or moving out of metropolises and going somewhere a little bit more rural. How are you seeing that potentially affecting recruiter networks, whether positively or negatively? But what are your thoughts on that?
We're agnostic, because, the jobs that are advertised and the people that are looking for jobs, it really doesn't matter whether they're remote or they're physical jobs or what city they're in or any of those things. So we're really we're very neutral to that. But there certainly are trends. I'm in Miami, and in Miami I meet people every day that are moving from New York. They're moving billion-dollar companies out of New York. And I'm not going to be the first person to say it, because they're unhappy with maybe how some of the politics are, the government, whether it's local or whether it's state. Certainly taxation is a huge thing. These are people that are driving businesses, many of which have been in New York hundreds of years, some of them, with billions of dollars and tens of thousands of employees, to relocate to Florida. And many of their employees are coming with them, and some are staying remote. I think, this whole thing of remote is opened the eyes of a lot of employees as well as employers. I think they're trying to understand the new dynamics. The one thing I remind myself every day is, whatever I knew, I have to not think, because every day is a new day and the dynamics change. And people say the new normal. We have not hit a new normal, because it's not normal. It's still in flux. So I have to rethink almost every day, what am I doing and what is happening, because I don't know if I'm thinking with yesterday's dynamics or today's dynamics. And, it's tough. Listen, I have a heart that says employees are having a difficult time. They've been laid off in droves. Some of them have been fortunate to be able to keep a remote position. Some have not been. But these changes as hard as they are on humans and on families with, income issues and having the rent money and the food money and all that stuff is true and it's real. I do believe that, it's like a tidal wave. That wave has hit us. It's not through us yet. And at some point in time, we will be able to pick up the pieces and maybe not rebuild our city or our world or our society the way it was, but we'll rebuild it based on today's world, and we'll make it better. It'll be different, but in some ways we'll be nostalgic. I always say the one thing now I realize is we didn't know how good we had it before, but we will adapt. And adaptation in jobs, whether you're the employer or the employee, is going to continue to be flux. It's going to continue to change. Some people will realize that once we do get, an inoculation or a cocktail or a treatment or whatever it is that's going to make Corona more controlled, that's going to allow people to decide how they want to return and by what degree they want to return to the old way of doing work. And I don't think we have that answer yet because we don't have the solution yet.
Yeah, well said. I want to end this with a kind of a fun question, because I'm also curious if you have a favorite. What's your favorite book or story or kind of piece of art that you've created, and why? Or most memorable? If I ask you, Richard, what's a show you created? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Okay. It's tough to say. I developed a show based on my life. When I was in Pittsburgh, my adopted grandfather was one of the five families. And if you're in New York, you know what one of the five families are. And he was the head of one of the five families. I was his surrogate grandson, and I was exposed to the history of what happened in that world. And I was exposed by a guy who was born in the early 1900s and was there for everything that happened in Cuba, everything that happened with the election of JFK, all the way through the assassination of JFK. And I made this world that I was in into a show. And this show is a TV show that is kind of like The Sopranos, but based on real life and in my life. And that's one of the main shows that we're now in discussions with different networks and streaming to actually, excuse me, to produce it. And the one thing I will tell you is I said this is going to be an inclusive show. Everybody talks about having all colors and having no glass ceilings based on sex or origin or religion or color or anything. This show is going to include writers and actors and producers across the board from every walk of life and every religion and every color, because working with what we would call organized crime, I know that they included in every neighborhood everybody from the blacks to Jamaicans to bikers, everybody. And part of what I'm doing with the show, and we're talking to a lot of the large networks and streaming services, is this will be a show that's going to break the barriers that everybody's been saying, why hasn't it happened in 50 years? This is it. And I've had people basically say, let's do it this way. And I just said no. And I walked away from multi-million-dollar deals to say, I want it this way because to me, I want to make a difference. I'm gonna just wrap up one thing really quickly that changed my life when I was a young kid. I was at a funeral, and I was with actually a rabbi. And, I was looking at all the gravestones, and the rabbi was looking at all the gravestones, and he said, what do you see here? And I said, I see gravestones with names and, great father, beloved this, beloved that. And what else? I see, well, the date, you're born and the day you die. He said, but you're missing the most important thing. And I said, what's that? He said, between your birth date and the day you die is a hyphen. He said, that hyphen is the most important thing because that represents what that person had as a life. And always remember that hyphen is what you've contributed to society, to your family, to yourself. to do something to make it better. And quite honestly, I've never forgotten. I must have been 10 years old, and I've never forgotten. And my objective is to leave the world in a better place, and hopefully I don't have to leave it yet. So I'm trying to make the better place while I can. And doing these projects, I believe that I can make a difference for a lot of people, and that makes me happy.
That's amazing. That is quite a vivid a story, and I got shivers just listening to it. Really powerful. Thank you so much, Richard. Really, your insights and sort of everything you've built, whether you wanted to or not, has brought change certainly to the immigration space and to so many others. So really appreciate you taking the time to chat and answer questions and things like that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Roman. I really appreciate it. And, knowing you now for a number of years, I appreciate everything you're doing to make immigration better and connect people that can help each other. Thank you.
Appreciate that. So there you have it, folks. Make sure that the hyphen before the date you're born and the date that you pass is full of support and good things, and that you do everything you can with your time here on this earth to make it a better place for people around you and people you love and people who you don't even know. Really great lesson from Richard Alman there. So thank you all so much for tuning in, for showing up, for your questions, for your comments. We'll be back next week with another show. And in the meantime, stay safe and take care of yourselves.